Looking further afield, I had the pleasure of interviewing Australian Tom Kennedy earlier in the week. Tom, who is currently residing in Ontario, Canada, travelled to New Zealand with the Canucks as a team media manager. I spoke with Tom about Canada's memorable matches in Pool A, team bonding, and those world-famous beards that some of the Canadian players sported.
I got the phone call from my boss then at Rugby Canada, Doug Cross, saying that he was unable to make the trip and asking if I wanted to do it. And obviously, as a kid growing up, going to a World Cup, whether it's as a player or a fan or in this case a staff member, you can't turn that kind of opportunity down. So it was hopefully not a once in a lifetime thing, but absolutely fantastic opportunity. I don't think anyone would turn it down.
And you did some of the team building exercises, didn't you, out up at Grouse Mountain, and you went up to Whistler as well. What was it kind of like to be there, and were you kind of made feel part of the squad as well?
Yeah, one of the best things about this squad that I noticed was it wasn't really a team, it was more like a family. I think within about 30 minutes of arriving at the team base in Whistler, I had a couple of the veteran guys in the squad like Ryan Smith and Pat Wright, and really made me feel like I was at home, like I was part of the team. They involved me in discussion and really made me feel welcome early. And then with the team building, Kieran Crowley, the head coach, really created quite a tight atmosphere. Like everything the guys were doing, you could tell while it was competitive, whether they were doing individual or team things, there was a real camaraderie there, and he built that up throughout the lead up to the World Cup, but also throughout the World Cup. He actually created groups of teams which involved players and staff members, and we had a point system based on every competition we did. And so, for example, when we were on the Gold Coast at the Southport School, we had a one full day of games where we did things like rowing, canoeing, rock climbing, different soccer games, rugby, tennis, that sort of thing, and each competition gave you a certain amount of points, and that sort of thing. It's still a competitive atmosphere, but it's also bonding. I think that was a really big aspect of what made this team so special. Is it was a family.
Yeah, and I suppose was it just that they got a great welcome when they arrived over, and I suppose that you guys were based up north of the North Island over there as well, but I suppose when it came to the first game, the game against Tonga, and you guys came back to get the win, just what did that feel like, I suppose?
It was easily the best feeling I've ever had from a sports perspective. Like, I've been playing rugby just as a club rugby guy for a lot of years, and I've never experienced anything like that in the sports world. And I was just a member of staff, but standing on the sidelines with a guy I played club with who's also a staff member, Trevor Stone, the assistant manager, and there was, when there was 2-3 minutes left and we're so tense, and then when Ed Fairhurst, the scrum half, finally kicks it out and we realise we've won the game, it was just exhilarating. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it right now. It was madness.
And I suppose then just some of the guys, it was kind of tough for them. There's a quick turnaround between games, and a lot of the players would have played 4 games in a row, and it was almost a shame that the last game was against New Zealand as well. But just the effort that it must have taken for a lot of the squad to play those big 4 games.
Yeah, the guys were really committed. It wasn't a case of a tier 2 nation going into this tournament thinking negative things about facing sides like the All Blacks. They really embraced those challenges, and the 4-day turnaround is difficult. Obviously, Tonga had a 4-day turnaround after the All Blacks to face us. We had a 4-day turnaround after Tonga to face France, and I think Kieran alluded to it after the France game, that when the guys are giving up three penalties in the last 5 minutes due to ill discipline, that could reflect on fatigue, and when they gave up 3 tries in the last 5 minutes of the second half, that could reflect on fatigue. But the guys, really, to their credit, didn't use it as an excuse, and they just backed up and they said, okay, we had these guys at 10-10 and we lost it, but we've got Japan next and we've really got to focus on that. And the All Blacks thing, like, they didn't look at it as this isn't going to be a great game to finish off the tour. It was kind of neat. We started the tour in the Bay of Islands, where they say modern New Zealand was born, with the signing of the treaty at the Waitangi Treaty Grounds, and we slowly moved our way south to the capital, where we played the national team in their country. I mean, you couldn't really write a better World Cup script for a side. That's something that I always thought it's regardless of the results, it's going to be such a special experience, because, I mean, they haven't hosted a World Cup in New Zealand for 24 years, and we're getting to play the All Blacks in their capital in New Zealand. It's not really something you can replicate.
And there was a couple of players there that kind of the performances really stood out as well, and also the beard stood out as well, like players like Jeb Sinclair and Adam Kleberg as well. Just it kind of really kind of brought them to the attention, but then all of a sudden their game playing really brought them to the attention of the public as well, and those two players in particular have done well since the tournament's finished.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if they'll ever forgive Doug and I for coining them the Beardos, but it definitely caught on in New Zealand. It was pretty crazy. I remember when we pulled into Napier, we got off the plane and went into the airport, and there was probably 200 or 300 people there, and we're seeing guys with the fake beards. I have no idea where they got them, but it was just kind of like a phenomenon, like this kind of niche thing had caught on, and these guys had a cult status. But you're exactly right. In terms of playing, that's what Cleves always wanted to say. He said he'd like to think it's not because of the beards, it's because of the way we played. And he was the man of the match against Tonga, and rightly so. I think the beard just kind of made him stand out a bit more. But by the same token, if he was playing rubbish, it would have made him stand out as well. So, but yeah, he signed a contract with the London Scottish shortly after we got back, and he's over there now. And Jeb signed before we left for the Irish, and he was getting some starts at 8. I believe he's had surgery for a broken thumb, so he's off right now, but he was playing really well for the Irish.
And did they ever try and drag you into the whole beard thing as well?
No, I think once they realised that if I didn't shave for a couple of days I looked like a 15-year-old, they got rid of that idea.
And what do you think now? What is it? Just after that kind of tournament, they've done well again. What is it? What do you kind of think the next step is for rugby over in Canada?
I think the really important thing is just to realise that we need more test matches in Canada. Like, for example, Ryan Smith and Richie McCaw, and I'm not comparing the two players in any way in terms of their playing and in terms of their stature within their countries, because obviously rugby is massive in New Zealand and hockey is massive in Canada, but Ryan Smith and Richie McCaw started playing rugby at the same time for their countries, and in this World Cup, McCaw celebrated his 100th test and Smith celebrated his 50th. So if you just look at that, a Tier 1 nation, a player playing for 9 or 10 years is getting 100 tests if he's healthy. A player in a Tier 2 nation is getting 50 tests. So, I mean, you cannot perform at an elite level for 80 minutes consistently unless you're playing elite matches. And it's not just test matches. I think Canada really needs professional competition. I'm not sure in what form or in what or when that's going to come about, but if you look at a country like New Zealand, South Africa, or Australia, or any of the European countries that have professional competitions, those guys are playing near to elite levels of rugby on a weekly basis, and then they're playing test matches. Whereas in Canada, the top level we have is the CRC, which is good, but they only play. They don't play very many games in the CRC, and then they've got to go and play test matches. So, I mean, whether right now we're relying on the experience to come from guys who've got professional contracts overseas, I'd love to see Canada get its own professional competition.
That was the ever passionate and insightful Tom Kennedy. I would like to thank Tom and all the other interviewees who shared a few moments with us this week. Join us again next week and be on the lookout for Stray Gary Owens. It's going to be a windy weekend of Pro 12 action.